I think the reports we're hearing, the scenes we're seeing on our screens are horrifying, and people feel angry and frightened. And I think it is absolutely essential that whilst Israel has a right to defend itself, it must act within international law and do everything humanly possible to protect innocent Palestinians, because they are not Hamas.
It's not illegal to use white phosphorus in certain circumstances. It is, as far as I can understand international law, it is illegal to use it in crowded areas where civilians are. If Israel is doing that, what would the Labour Party want to say?
So I understand why you and others have asked and will continue to ask us about individual incidents and what's happening. I think it would be unwise when we are not on the ground to make comments about that and to make pronouncements. I think it's interesting that the prosecutor for the International Criminal Court said earlier this week he hasn't and he won't give a running commentary on what is happening. He will gather all the evidence and look at how the law is being followed by Israel and Hamas. He wants good quality evidence that can be taken to a court of law. That's what he's focused on. And if he won't give a running commentary, I think it is absolutely unwise for politicians to do that either.
Just heard from the government, they say that they would condemn the use of white phosphorus. Is Labour going to...
I mean, nobody wants to see that ever happening. We actually want an end to all loss of life. But I think it is right that those responsible for dealing with these issues gather the evidence. We shouldn't give a running commentary on that, even though I really understand that people want us to say on every incident what is right and what is wrong.
Your leader has clarified his position on Israel. What should happen to those who don't abide by the party line?
This is a really difficult, complex, serious and deeply held issue. I think we have been listening to the public, to our representatives and members, but I think Keir has shown real leadership in setting forward our position that whilst we all want an end to that violence, a ceasefire isn't the right approach now. And I would say we saw...
With respect, that's not my question. My question is what happens to those who don't abide by what he says is the party line?
Well, we will continue to engage with all of our representatives on this issue. I actually think it is a strength of our party that we have people with real lived experience who represent the communities who are deeply affected by this.
So they won't be disciplined?
Well, that's not been Keir's approach. He wants to continue to listen. And let me just say this, though. I think the argument about why a ceasefire isn't right now, because it will leave Hamas in place, is absolutely the right case that Keir has made. Just yesterday, we saw a spokesperson for Hamas saying, clearly and publicly, we would do those atrocities from the 7th of October again and again until Israel is annihilated. So it is not right for us to call for a ceasefire now that would lead that in place. But we will continue to make that case.
Yeah. I didn't ask that. I asked what's going to happen to people who don't toe the party line.
Well, we will continue to listen and engage.
They won't be disciplined?
That's not been the approach.
But will it be going forward?
That's not the approach we've taken. We will continue to... Well, it will be the same. But Keir's position is the right one. And I actually think, if you look across our party, our desire to end the killing, to make sure we get the aid in and the hostages out, and that the long-term goal of a two-state solution is something that we all agree on.
I'm just looking at the numbers just to get them absolutely right. Some 300 councillors, and more than that, have signed a letter urging him to back a ceasefire. That is your leader. Those councillors are saying that they do not support the party line. How is he going to keep the party united?
So actually Keir has set that out, and the reasons why we're saying a ceasefire now isn't right, that we do want humanitarian pause to make sure we get that desperately needed support to Palestinians. Crucially, that we want to do everything possible to get the hostages out as well. That case was made earlier this week. We will continue to argue that and engage with people, because ultimately what we all want, which is an end to civilian lives being lost, and for a two-state solution, the party is absolutely in agreement about.
Why do you feel that the situation in the Middle East so divides the party?
I think that this is probably one of the most serious issues we would ever talk about, sitting here on this sofa. It's one of the deeply held worries and concerns I know from my own constituency, speaking to members of my Muslim community and Jewish community, that it is an extremely fraught and decades-long problem. And one of the things that I am really concerned about is obviously what's happening in the Middle East, but the impact here and the risk that this becomes a sort of, as if it's some sort of one side or the other, when in fact the horror of seeing those burnt babies, the horror of parents waiting to see if an incubator in Gaza is switched off, that common humanity is being lost. That is the thing I'm really worried about at the moment. And I think our job as leaders is to try and make sure that we show what we have in common. And I really think, I worry that some of that is being lost, because this is deeply painful and decades long. And that is why it's so difficult, not just within the Labour Party, but, within, families, friends, very fraught discussions. And if we lose sight of the fact we are all humans, this will continue to happen, and that is the real problem.
Obviously, people in the United Kingdom do not have to worry about bombs falling on them and their family, but many of them do have to worry about the cost of living crisis.
Oh gosh, yes.
And you are very concerned about housing.
Absolutely, and today we have been talking about the fact that 630,000 more people between now and May, when the next local elections are going to remortgage and see their mortgages go up by an average of £220 a month. I mean, in my constituency, people, they just can't find that money. They don't know how they're going to put food on the table for their kids. And as the winter comes and people are worried about heating, they don't know how they're going to continue. We need a big change in approach, get the economy growing, make sure we have more decent, affordable and social housing, and put money in people's pockets. That, I think, is the big challenge facing the country. And whilst our screens are understandably dominated by all the issues around Israel and Palestine, we want to do everything we can on that, but also continue to highlight the day-to-day problems that people in this country are facing.
We must let you go. Thank you for taking the time to join us on the programme this morning.